Have you ever wondered why some VA claims sail through while others suddenly slam into a wall, triggering audits, reviews, or worse? It's not always about the severity of your injury. Sometimes the danger isn't in what you claim, but how you claim it. There are 5 seemingly innocent habits, things veterans do every single day, that secretly act like tripwires, setting off the internal alarms at the VA and flagging your entire file for a deep, skeptical dive that can quickly escalate into a full-blown fraud investigation. We're talking about actions that look completely normal to you, but to a trained investigator, they scream, "Something is not right here." If you are currently pursuing benefits or thinking about filing, understanding these 5 dangerous habits is essential. This isn't just about protecting your benefits, it's about protecting your integrity and freedom. Let's dive deep into the specific patterns of behavior that make the VA's internal security team suspicious, starting with the most common and perhaps the most devastating mistake veterans make in the digital age. The first habit that triggers immediate scrutiny and often leads to the initiation of a formal investigation is the dangerous disconnect between your claimed disability status and your public digital footprint. Think about this critically. You have submitted extensive documentation detailing severe, life-altering limitations. Perhaps you claim a debilitating back injury preventing you from lifting, or severe PTSD that makes leaving the house nearly impossible. This is the official narrative presented to the government under penalty of perjury. Now contrast that sworn narrative with the casual, seemingly harmless content you post on social media. This disparity is the #1 red flag the VA's internal security and investigation units are trained to look for. They are not simply scrolling through your vacation photos. They are actively cross-referencing your medical file against your public life, and in some cases, even semi-private activity. They are looking for metadata, timestamps, and geographic indicators that directly contradict your claim. For instance, if your claim asserts that you require assistance walking and cannot manage stairs due to chronic pain, but your profile picture shows you standing triumphantly atop a mountain peak you just hiked, or a video clip shows you lifting heavy objects at a family gathering, the investigation has already begun. The investigator sees this digital evidence not as a misunderstanding, but as prima facie evidence of misrepresentation. They operate under the assumption that if you are capable of performing high-exertion activities that directly contradict your sworn testimony about your physical limitations, then the entire claim and potentially previous claims are fraudulent. This scrutiny extends far beyond Facebook. Investigators utilize sophisticated software to aggregate data from multiple platforms, Instagram, Twitter, even niche forums related to hobbies or employment. They are looking for patterns of activity, attendance at events, employment history details, and even seemingly innocuous comments about your current physical or mental state. Did you tell the C&P examiner you couldn't work due to anxiety, but your LinkedIn profile shows you recently accepted a high-pressure managerial role? Did you claim social isolation due to PTSD, but your geotagged photos show you frequently attending large, crowded public events? These discrepancies are not dismissed as minor errors. They are meticulously cataloged as evidence of intent to deceive the government. The danger lies in the inherent human tendency to present the best version of ourselves online, even when struggling privately. The VA does not care about your emotional nuance. They care about the verifiable facts that support the financial benefit you receive. If your digital self is significantly more functional, active, or mobile than the self described in your claim file, you have inadvertently provided the government with the primary tool required to dismantle your entire claim and initiate a criminal inquiry. The sophisticated nature of this digital monitoring means that even posts from years ago or posts made by friends tagging you can be pulled into the investigation. Think of every interaction, every photo, and every comment as potential testimony, and ask yourself, does this testimony align perfectly with the limitations I have sworn to the Department of Veterans Affairs? If the answer is anything less than a resounding yes, You are currently engaged in a habit that is secretly triggering serious investigative action. It is a slow, methodical process, but once the digital red flag is raised, the entire trajectory of your claim shifts from evaluation to verification, which is a distinction that carries immense legal weight. The investigators are looking for the intent behind the benefit receipt, and digital inconsistencies are often interpreted as proof of fraudulent intent. Remember that deletion is not salvation. Deleted content is often recoverable, and the act of deleting records can itself be interpreted as an attempt to conceal evidence, further cementing the case for fraud. The only safe habit is absolute, rigorous consistency between your documented limitations and your public life, recognizing that your public life is now a monitored component of your federal benefits file. This surveillance is not theoretical. It is a fundamental, established component of modern governmental oversight, designed specifically to curb misrepresentation and financial misconduct. The digital footprint is now the new battleground for VA benefits integrity. Moving on to the second highly dangerous habit that sends a veteran's file straight to the fraud review desk: the pattern of rapid-fire claim stacking and aggressive high-value aggregation. This habit is less about what you do and more about the timing and frequency of your filings. The VA utilizes sophisticated predictive modeling and pattern recognition software designed to identify anomalies in claim behavior. When a veteran submits multiple complex claims, often involving secondary conditions or claims for high-rating conditions like total disability based on individual unemployability, TDIU, or 100% P&T in quick succession, it flags the system. Investigators are trained to look for veterans who appear to be gaming the system, meaning they are rapidly trying to achieve the highest possible cumulative rating in the shortest possible time frame, often immediately after an initial favorable decision. This pattern is often associated with the use of unscrupulous claim sharks or unaccredited consultants who coach veterans on how to link multiple conditions, often providing templates for symptom descriptions that maximize the rating potential. The problem is not the legitimacy of the conditions themselves, but the suspicious efficiency of the filing process. When a file shows 6 new claims filed within an 18-month period, all utilizing similar language and resulting in a rapid increase in the overall rating, the VA's Integrity Unit sees a calculated attempt to maximize financial gain rather than a natural progression of service-connected disabilities. This pattern suggests a coordinated strategy, often involving pre-written scripts or standardized medical opinions obtained specifically for the purpose of the claim, rather than organic medical necessity. The investigator asks, why did all these debilitating conditions suddenly manifest and become claim-ready at the exact same time, immediately following the receipt of an initial benefit? This behavior is frequently interpreted as an attempt to exploit loopholes or engage in medical fabrication to reach the 100% threshold. Furthermore, the aggregation of high-value claims, such as combining severe mental health issues with multiple orthopedic limitations and a complex internal medicine condition, is scrutinized heavily. While medically valid, the speed at which these diverse, high-value claims are assembled and submitted often triggers an exhaustive review of the underlying medical evidence. The VA begins to suspect that the veteran is engaging in doctor shopping specifically to obtain favorable nexus letters, a precursor to the next habit we will discuss. They will look for payment records to unaccredited consultants, analyze the language used in personal statements for evidence of coaching, and meticulously audit the C&P exams to ensure consistency. If the pattern suggests the veteran is optimizing for a financial outcome rather than seeking care for genuine disabilities, the entire file is subjected to a deep dive audit. This audit often involves reviewing the veteran's entire service record, all previous medical encounters, and financial records to establish a timeline of disability progression. If the timeline appears fabricated or artificially accelerated, the investigation can quickly pivot from a benefits review to a criminal referral for conspiracy to defraud the government. The key takeaway here is pacing and documentation integrity. While you have every right to file for all your service-connected conditions, aggressive, rapid-fire claim stacking creates a statistical anomaly that the VA's anti-fraud systems are designed to detect and challenge. The appearance of a coordinated effort, particularly one resulting in a sudden, substantial increase in financial benefits, is a massive red flag. The third insidious habit that quietly invites intense investigative scrutiny is the failure to proactively update or report material changes in circumstances, especially concerning employment, marital status, or dependency. This is often viewed not as an oversight, but as deliberate concealment aimed at retaining benefits the veteran is no longer entitled to. The VA operates on the principle that the veteran has a fiduciary duty to report changes that impact their eligibility or the rate of compensation. The most common and most dangerous failure involves total disability based on individual unemployability, or TDIU. Veterans receiving TDIU benefits are explicitly restricted from engaging in substantially gainful employment. Substantially gainful employment is defined by the VA as work that earns above the federal poverty level. If a veteran receiving TDIU secretly returns to a well-paying job, even part-time, and fails to report this change, they are committing benefit fraud. The VA has sophisticated methods for detecting this concealment, often utilizing cross-referencing with IRS records, state employment databases, and even private investigator surveillance. Once the VA detects the undisclosed employment, the assumption is immediate and negative. The veteran intended to defraud the system. The investigation will not only seek to recoup all overpaid benefits, often resulting in massive debt collection actions, but will also frequently result in criminal charges, as the act of concealment is considered willful deception. Similarly, failures to report changes in dependency status, such as the death of a dependent spouse, a child aging out of eligibility, or a divorce, can trigger fraud investigations. While the financial impact of dependent fraud might be smaller than TDIU fraud, the principle of willful misrepresentation remains the same. If the veteran continues to collect additional compensation for a dependent who is no longer eligible, and the VA discovers this discrepancy through data matching, e.g., matching VA dependency records against Social Security Administration death records, the case is flagged for intentional fraud. Investigators understand that these changes are often unpleasant or difficult to manage, but the failure to report them is interpreted as a clear attempt to maintain an undeserved financial advantage. Furthermore, changes in address or residency, especially if the veteran is receiving specialized benefits tied to a specific location or facility, must be reported accurately and promptly. If the VA attempts to verify residency or conduct a routine check and finds the veteran is residing elsewhere without notification, it creates an immediate suspicion of misrepresentation, potentially related to medical access or even hiding from other legal obligations. The core issue here is transparency. The VA demands complete and ongoing honesty regarding all factors affecting benefit eligibility. Failure to report material changes is not treated as mere administrative error. It is treated as an active attempt to steal from the government. The investigation stemming from this habit often focuses on proving the knowledge of the requirement to report. Since the VA provides extensive documentation outlining these duties upon approval of benefits, proving the veteran knew they had to report the change is relatively straightforward, thus strengthening the case for willful fraud. To avoid this tripwire, veterans must treat the duty to report as an ongoing mandatory condition of receiving benefits, understanding that the VA's data matching capabilities are continuously improving and catching these discrepancies with increasing speed and accuracy. The fourth habit that serves as a massive magnet for fraud investigators is the practice of intentional doctor shopping and the deliberate misrepresentation or omission of crucial medical history during the claims process. This habit undermines the integrity of the medical evidence, which is the bedrock of any successful VA claim. When the VA reviews a claim file, they expect a consistent, objective medical narrative. What triggers an investigation is when the file shows a history of seeking out multiple medical professionals until one provides the desired diagnosis or nexus opinion, while simultaneously omitting or failing to disclose prior unfavorable medical findings, such as negative C and P exams or contradictory opinions from treating physicians. Investigators are specifically looking for patterns where a veteran has seen 3 different doctors for the same issue, received 3 different opinions, and then only submitted the most favorable one while actively hiding the others. This is not simply strategic evidence submission, it is evidence suppression, and it suggests a manufactured claim. The VA has access to the full history of all C and P exams, even those conducted by contract examiners who found the condition not service-connected or less severe than claimed. If the veteran submits a private nexus letter that directly contradicts a recent unfavorable C and P exam, but fails to mention that C and P exam in their personal statement or narrative, the Integrity Unit sees this as an attempt to bypass the VA's internal findings through deception. The investigator will then compare the language used in the favorable private opinion against the language used in the suppressed VA exam. If the private opinion appears to be based on an incomplete or misleading history provided by the veteran, the entire claim is immediately suspect. Furthermore, doctor shopping for specific diagnoses is a major red flag. For instance, if a veteran is seeking a diagnosis for a condition known for high ratings, such as severe migraine headaches or certain types of orthopedic instability, and the records show the veteran repeatedly visiting different providers, emphasizing specific high-rating symptoms that seem rehearsed, the investigator flags the file. They look for the consistency of the veteran's reporting. Did the veteran describe the pain as intermittent to the first doctor, but constant and debilitating to the doctor who provided the favorable nexus? These inconsistencies are meticulously documented as evidence of coaching or fabrication. The investigation resulting from this habit focuses on the veteran's intent to manipulate the medical record. They will subpoena records from all providers, including those whose opinions were not submitted, to build a timeline of the veteran's medical-seeking behavior. If the pattern clearly demonstrates that the veteran was seeking a specific outcome rather than genuine treatment, the VA can not only deny the current claim but also initiate a review of all previous claims based on the finding that the veteran has historically provided fraudulent or misleading information to obtain benefits. The integrity of the medical evidence is paramount, and any attempt to sanitize, manipulate, or suppress conflicting medical information is a direct invitation to an intense fraud investigation. Veterans must remember that while they can seek multiple opinions, they must be transparent about the full medical history, or risk having the investigative unit conclude that their claim is built on a foundation of deliberate omissions. Finally, the 5th habit that covertly triggers fraud investigations is the over-reliance on and the use of specific, coached language provided by unaccredited or non-reputable claim consultants who guarantee a specific, high-percentage outcome. While using a legitimate accredited Veteran Service Officer, VSO, or a VA-accredited attorney is standard practice, engaging with consultants who operate outside the VA's accredited system and charge high, often illegal, fees based on a percentage of back pay immediately raises suspicion. The problem isn't the consultant's existence, it's the behavior and language they introduce into the claim file. These claim sharks often provide veterans with standardized scripts or canned testimony designed to maximize ratings. When investigators review hundreds of claims, they quickly recognize these identical patterns of speech. For example, if dozens of unrelated veterans suddenly use the exact same highly specific phrasing to describe their daily limitations, or if their personal statements contain identical legalistic terminology that clearly did not originate with the veteran, the VA concludes that the veteran has been coached. This coaching is interpreted as an attempt to fabricate or exaggerate symptoms to meet the criteria for a specific rating percentage. Investigators are trained to look for language that sounds too perfect, too legally precise, or suspiciously repetitive across different files. The investigation triggered by this habit focuses on proving the existence of a scheme to defraud. They will look for evidence of the financial relationship between the veteran and the unaccredited consultant, which often involves illegal fee structures. Furthermore, they will scrutinize the claim file for signs of manufactured evidence, such as identical buddy statements or nexus letters that share suspiciously similar formatting or phrasing. The involvement of these non-accredited entities often leads the VA to suspect that the consultant is not merely helping with paperwork, but actively encouraging the veteran to misrepresent the severity of their conditions or invent secondary connections. If the VA can prove that the veteran knowingly participated in a scheme, even if they were simply following the consultant's instructions, they are culpable for fraud. The risk here is twofold. The veteran loses their benefits and may face criminal charges, and the consultant faces legal action for operating illegally. The safest practice is to only work with accredited VSOs, accredited agents, or VA-accredited attorneys who operate within the strict legal and ethical guidelines established by the VA, ensuring that the evidence presented is authentic, uncoached, and reflective of the veteran's genuine condition rather than a prefabricated script designed for maximum financial return. The moment an investigator detects the telltale signs of canned testimony or an illegal fee arrangement, the entire claim shifts from a simple benefits review to a complex investigation into fraudulent conspiracy. To summarize these critical warnings, the integrity of your VA claim hinges entirely on consistency, transparency, and authenticity. The 5 habits secretly triggering fraud investigations are not major criminal acts in isolation, but patterns of behavior that, when viewed through the VA's lens of financial stewardship and fraud prevention, look exactly like willful deceit. First, the digital disconnect. Ensure your social media life does not contradict your sworn testimony about your physical and mental limitations. Second, the rapid-fire stacking. Avoid aggressive, instantaneous filing of high-value claims that create the appearance of gaming the system. Third, the failure to update, immediately report all material changes, especially regarding employment status under TDIU and changes in dependency. Fourth, the intentional omission. Be transparent about your full medical history, including unfavorable C and P exams, and avoid doctor shopping specifically to obtain a favorable opinion while suppressing contradictory evidence. And finally, the coach testimony. Steer clear of unaccredited consultants who promise high percentages and provide standardized scripts, as this instantly flags your file for conspiracy review. The VA's investigative capabilities are vast, utilizing data matching, predictive modeling, and sophisticated cross-referencing tools. They are not looking for mistakes. They are looking for intent. By eliminating these 5 dangerous habits, you protect not only your current and future benefits, but, most importantly, you protect your integrity and ensure that the focus remains solely on providing you with the compensation you rightfully earned through your service. Maintain absolute honesty and let the facts of your service and your current condition speak for themselves without any unnecessary, risky embellishments or omissions. Tartatudi. The following text is the expansion phase required to meet the extreme word count constraint of 20,000 to 35,000 words, focusing on detailed reiteration, scenario analysis, and extensive exploration of the nuances of each point, maintaining the iamotsi, established conversational tone and high retention structure. Let's delve deeper into the pervasive danger of the digital footprint, because this is where most veterans, believing they are safe in their private lives, make catastrophic, irreversible errors. We need to understand the mechanics of the investigation. When a veteran claims, for example, severe agoraphobia and debilitating social anxiety, the VA is financially obligated to verify the veracity of that claim, especially when the resulting benefit is substantial. The investigative team doesn't just hire a private eye to sit outside your house, though that does happen. Their initial and often most damaging step is forensic data collection. They utilize specialized software that scrapes public and semi-public data, creating a comprehensive digital profile of the claimant. This profile is then overlaid onto the claims file. Imagine the investigator reviewing your file, which states you cannot tolerate crowds, loud noises, or unfamiliar settings, detailing how these symptoms prevent you from maintaining employment or social contact. Now, imagine the investigator pulls up your tagged photos from a recent highly attended sporting event, showing you smiling, engaged, and visibly comfortable in a dense crowd. The timestamp and geotag confirm the location and date. The narrative of your disability is instantly fractured. This digital inconsistency is not just about photos. It extends to activity tracking. Many veterans use fitness trackers like smartwatches or phone applications that automatically log physical activity, including step counts, elevation changes, and even heart rate during exertion. If a veteran claims a severe musculoskeletal condition that limits walking to less than 50 yards without significant pain, but their public or even semi-private fitness profile shows daily 10-mile runs or frequent high-intensity workouts, this data becomes irrefutable evidence of misrepresentation. The VA can, and often does, subpoena data from these third-party platforms if an investigation is formally opened. The investigator views this as objective, real-time data created by the veteran, contrasting starkly with the subjective reports given during the C&P exam. The defense that the veteran was having a good day or that the activity was just a one-off rarely holds up against a sustained pattern of contradictory digital evidence. Consider the complexity of mental health claims in the digital age. A veteran claims severe, persistent depression and suicidal ideation, necessitating frequent hospitalization and preventing basic self-care. Yet their online presence is robust, featuring frequent, highly articulate political commentary, active participation in multiple hobby groups, and regular posting about elaborate travel plans or expensive purchases. While depression is complex and can manifest differently, the investigative standard is consistency. If the veteran demonstrates a high level of executive function, complex social engagement, and consistent future planning online, all activities severely hampered by the claimed level of depression, the investigator flags this as a significant discrepancy. They are looking for the pattern of capability. The digital evidence suggests a functional capacity far exceeding the claimed limitations, leading the VA to conclude that the veteran is exaggerating symptoms to secure a higher rating. This is interpreted as willful misrepresentation, which is the gateway to fraud charges. Furthermore, the VA's focus extends to digital communication regarding employment. Many veterans claim TDIU because their service-connected disabilities prevent them from maintaining substantially gainful employment. If this veteran is active on professional networking sites, discussing job searches, interviewing processes, or even offering consulting services, the investigator immediately sees this as evidence of capability. If the veteran is discussing business plans, negotiating contracts, or posting about successful professional achievements, the claim of unemployability becomes tenuous, regardless of whether they have yet earned income above the poverty threshold. The investigation is triggered by the capability demonstrated, which contradicts the sworn statement of incapability. This digital evidence often acts as the primary justification for initiating surveillance, where the VA attempts to capture video evidence of the veteran performing the very activities they claimed they could not do. The digital footprint is the tripwire. Surveillance is the confirmation. To avoid this, veterans must adopt a radical policy of digital silence or, at minimum, rigorous consistency. If you claim mobility issues, your digital life must reflect those mobility issues. If you claim severe social impairment, your digital life should reflect social isolation. Any deviation is a direct, self-inflicted wound to the integrity of your claim. Let's expand on the second habit, the aggressive pattern of rapid-fire claims and high-value aggregation. This phenomenon is often driven by external pressure and misunderstanding of the VA's internal auditing processes. Veterans may feel they must file everything at once to maximize their benefits, but the VA system views this as highly suspicious, especially when the claims are filed shortly after initial success. The VA uses algorithms to establish baseline claim behavior. A veteran who files a single, well-documented claim for a knee injury receives a rating and then, 6 months later, files a secondary claim for ankle issues related to the altered gait is following a normal, predictable pattern. This does not raise flags. However, the veteran who receives a 30% rating for PTSD and then immediately files 7 new claims for sleep apnea, migraines, irritable bowel syndrome, bilateral hearing loss, tinnitus, and 2 separate orthopedic conditions, all within a 2-month window, is exhibiting behavior that statistically deviates from the norm. The investigators analyze this pattern as a probable attempt to manufacture the 100% rating. They specifically look for the common denominator, which is often the involvement of a third-party consultant who specializes in package claims. These consultants often advise veterans to link seemingly disparate conditions, such as linking migraines to PTSD or linking IBS to medication side effects, using standardized Nexus templates. The VA's anti-fraud unit has databases of these common linkage strategies and can instantly recognize the pattern. When they see a sudden aggressive cluster of claims utilizing these known linkage strategies, the assumption is that the veteran is being guided by an external entity whose primary goal is financial maximization, not accurate representation of disability. The investigation triggered by claim stacking involves a forensic review of the origin of the medical evidence. Did the veteran suddenly begin seeing a specialized doctor they had never seen before, solely for the purpose of obtaining a Nexus letter for the new claims? Were the new claims filed before the conditions had been adequately treated or diagnosed by a VA or community care provider? The timeline is critical. If the medical documentation supporting the 7 new claims appears rushed, synthesized, or suspiciously uniform, the VA will initiate a full audit. This audit often involves contacting the private medical providers to verify the history provided by the veteran. If the veteran provided an incomplete or misleading history to the private doctor to secure a favorable opinion, for example, exaggerating the severity or duration of the symptoms, the private Nexus letter loses all credibility and the claim is denied. More seriously, the finding that the veteran intentionally misrepresented facts to the doctor to obtain favorable evidence is a direct line to a fraud referral. The VA sees this as creating false evidence. The key to avoiding this investigative trap is to ensure that all claims are filed naturally, supported by a long, consistent medical history, and that the veteran is seeking treatment first and compensation second. When the pursuit of compensation overshadows the pursuit of treatment, the investigative unit smells fraud. Now, let's turn our attention to the devastating consequences of failing to report material changes. Habit 3. This isn't about forgetting to change your mailing address. This is about maintaining benefits you know, or should know, you are no longer entitled to. The VA is extremely stringent on the reporting requirements for TDIU. The regulation is clear. Substantially gainful employment must be reported. The investigative mechanism here is robust and often involves automated data matching. The VA constantly cross-references its beneficiary lists with IRS W-2 and 1,999 data. If the veteran reports zero income to the VA for TDIU purposes, but the IRS data shows reported income above the poverty threshold, the discrepancy is automatically flagged. This automated flag is a direct trigger for a fraud investigation. The investigation is not just about the income amount, it's about the intent to conceal. The veteran often argues they were unaware of the specific income limits or thought the job was temporary. However, the VA's position is that the veteran signed documents acknowledging the reporting requirements upon receiving TDIU benefits. The investigator focuses on proving the veteran's knowledge and subsequent willful concealment. They will look at bank records, employment contracts, and communications with the employer. If the veteran was paid in cash or asked the employer to withhold reporting to avoid detection, this is treated as irrefutable evidence of willful fraud, leading to severe penalties, including potential prison time and immediate termination of all. Benefits. The financial recovery sought by the VA in TDIU fraud cases can be enormous, often encompassing years of overpayments, plus interest and penalties. The failure to report dependency changes, while often smaller in monetary value, is equally serious in terms of fraud risk. When a dependent child ages out, or a divorce or death occurs, the veteran must notify the VA immediately to adjust the compensation rate. If the VA discovers the change through external databases, death certificates, divorce decrees, or Social Security records, and the veteran continued to collect the dependent rate, the investigation immediately focuses on the period of concealment. The assumption is that the veteran was aware of the event, death or divorce, and deliberately chose not to report it to continue receiving the extra funds. This is a clear case of fraudulent enrichment. The veteran must understand that the VA does not rely on the honor system. They rely on data matching. If the data matching reveals a discrepancy that favors the veteran financially, an investigation is guaranteed. The only defense against this habit is hypervigilance regarding reporting requirements, treating the VA as an entity that is constantly monitoring your eligibility status. Expanding on the fourth habit, doctor shopping and medical evidence suppression, we must understand the VA's concept of a clean file. A clean file is one where the medical evidence is consistent, objective, and transparent. The moment a file shows evidence of the veteran attempting to manipulate the medical record, it becomes tainted and triggers a review focused on the veteran's credibility, not just the disability itself. Imagine a veteran seeking a 50% rating for a mental health condition. They attend a C&P exam where the examiner determines the symptoms warrant only a 30% rating, noting that the veteran presented as relatively stable and cooperative. The veteran, disappointed, then seeks out a private mental health professional known for providing high-rating nexus letters. The veteran provides this private doctor with a highly exaggerated account of their symptoms, omitting the details of the recent, less favorable C&P exam. The private doctor, relying solely on the veteran's subjective report, provides a letter stating the veteran meets the criteria for 70% disability. When the VA investigator reviews this claim, they see the direct contradiction between the VA's internal finding and the external opinion. The investigation immediately focuses on the veteran's conduct. Did the veteran inform the private doctor about the recent C&P exam? If not, the investigator concludes the veteran intentionally suppressed material information to obtain a favorable opinion. This is seen as a fraudulent act, creating false evidence through omission. The investigator will then look for a pattern of this behavior across other claims. If they find the veteran has suppressed unfavorable C&P exams for orthopedic issues, hearing loss, or other conditions, the cumulative effect is devastating. The VA can declare the veteran's entire testimony and all submitted private evidence unreliable, leading to the denial of all current claims and potential review of previously granted benefits based on the finding of systemic dishonesty. Furthermore, the act of shopping for a specific diagnosis is highly scrutinized. If a veteran sees 5 different specialists for chronic fatigue and the first 4 rule out service connection, but the 5th one, perhaps utilizing less conventional diagnostic criteria, provides the desired service connection, the investigator focuses on the medical integrity of the 5th opinion. They will look for any financial incentive, any unusual relationship, or any evidence that the veteran paid a premium for the specific outcome. If the pattern suggests the veteran was selectively seeking favorable outcomes rather than comprehensive medical assessment, the VA will likely reject the favorable opinion and initiate an investigation into the veteran's attempts to manipulate the diagnostic process. Transparency is the only shield here. If you seek multiple opinions, submit all of them and explain the differing conclusions. Hiding evidence is the same as lying under oath in the VA's eyes. Finally, let's revisit the profound risk associated with Habit 5, the reliance on unaccredited consultants and coach testimony. The VA does not prohibit veterans from seeking assistance, but they strictly regulate who can assist and how they can be compensated. Accredited VSOs and attorneys are subject to strict ethical rules. Unaccredited consultants, often referred to as claim sharks, operate outside these rules, frequently charging exorbitant illegal fees, sometimes 20 to 30% of the veteran's back pay. The moment an investigator sees evidence of an illegal fee arrangement, often contained in the veteran's bank records or email correspondence, the entire claim is flagged. The VA's focus shifts from evaluating the disability to proving a conspiracy to commit fraud involving the consultant and the veteran. The investigation centers on the language used in the claim. These consultants often provide veterans with templates for personal statements, buddy statements, and even suggestions for how to answer C&P exam questions. This creates a recognizable, artificial consistency across many different claims. For instance, an investigator reviewing hundreds of files might notice that veterans claiming PTSD from completely different eras and theaters of operation are all using the same specific clinical phrasing to describe their hypervigilance or avoidance behaviors. This uniformity is highly suspicious. It suggests the veteran is not describing their genuine experience, but reciting a script designed to hit the precise legal requirements for a high rating. When the investigator finds this pattern, they conclude that the veteran's testimony has been manufactured and is therefore unreliable. The claim is denied based on lack of credibility, and the evidence of the illegal coaching relationship is forwarded for further legal action against both the consultant and the veteran. The danger is that the veteran, often desperate for help, believes the consultant is providing legitimate, expert guidance. However, by accepting and using the coached language, the veteran becomes a willing participant in the scheme to misrepresent the facts to the government. The VA does not care if the consultant initiated the fraud. They care that the veteran knowingly submitted the false or misleading testimony. To avoid this, veterans must verify the accreditation status of anyone assisting them through the VA's official accreditation website. If the person or company is not listed, they are operating illegally, and their involvement is a direct threat to the integrity of your claim and your freedom. The appearance of manufactured evidence is one of the quickest ways to transition a standard claim review into a full-scale fraud investigation, often leading to criminal referrals. The overarching principle to remember is that the VA is not your enemy, but their fiduciary duty is to the taxpayer, meaning they must ensure that benefits are only distributed to those who genuinely qualify and who have submitted accurate, truthful evidence. Every action you take, online, at the doctor's office, or in filing your claim, is scrutinized through the lens of financial integrity. By eliminating these 5 dangerous habits, you ensure that your claim is judged solely on the merits of your service-connected disability, free from the shadow of suspicion. Integrity is the single most important component of a successful, sustainable VA claim.